behind the iconic façade of Buckingham Palace. Beyond the grand balcony where monarchs greet the world and the gates where crowds gather daily, exists a hidden world that few ever truly see, a world that operates with quiet precision, deep tradition, and an almost invisible rhythm that keeps the heart of the British monarchy beating. While the public imagines opulence and ceremony, the reality inside is far more intricate, where centuries-old customs blend seamlessly with modern systems, and where an entire community lives and works in a space that is both a home and a symbol. Within its hundreds of rooms, long corridors stretch like arteries, connecting private apartments, staterooms, offices, and service areas that rarely appear in photographs. And it is within these quieter spaces that the real life of the palace unfolds. From early morning, long before the palace gates open to visitors, the day begins in silence, broken only by the soft movements of staff who navigate the corridors with practiced familiarity, ensuring everything is prepared before the visible world awakens. Kitchens come alive with controlled urgency, not in chaos, but in a calm, disciplined flow where meals are prepared with precision, often tailored to exact preferences, dietary needs, and traditions that have been preserved for generations. The scale is immense, yet nothing feels rushed, because every task follows an unspoken order that has been refined over decades. In other parts of the palace, housekeeping staff move discreetly, maintaining rooms that must always appear untouched, even though they are constantly in use, adjusting details so subtle that they are rarely noticed but always essential. The palace is not just a residence, but a working institution, and hidden within its walls are offices where decisions are prepared, correspondence is managed, and events are planned with extraordinary attention to detail. Teams coordinate schedules that can span months in advance, ensuring that every appearance, meeting, and ceremony unfolds without visible effort. There are rooms dedicated to archiving history, where documents, letters, and records are carefully preserved, forming a quiet timeline of the monarchy's evolving story. Technology exists here too, though it is often concealed, integrated in a way that does not disturb the historical atmosphere, allowing modern communication and security systems to operate behind the scenes. Security is one of the most carefully guarded aspects of life inside the palace, not just at the gates, but throughout the entire structure, layered in ways that remain largely unseen. Movements are monitored, access is controlled, and yet everything is designed to feel natural rather than restrictive, maintaining the illusion of ease while ensuring absolute safety. Even the routines of those who live and work within the palace are shaped by this invisible framework, creating a balance between openness and protection that is rarely acknowledged but always present. Despite its grandeur, Buckingham Palace is also a place of routine and human moments, where life continues in ways that are surprisingly ordinary beneath the extraordinary setting. There are quiet mornings, private conversations, moments of reflection, and even small daily rituals that bring a sense of normalcy to an otherwise highly structured environment. Staff members, many of whom dedicate years or even entire careers to the palace, form a close-knit community bound by shared responsibility and deep respect for tradition. Their roles may differ, but they are united by a collective understanding that their work supports something far larger than themselves. The rhythm of the palace shifts with the seasons, with certain times of the year bringing increased activity, state events, and official ceremonies that require meticulous preparation. During these periods, the hidden life becomes even more dynamic, with rehearsals, logistical planning, and coordination happening continuously behind closed doors. Every detail, from the placement of a chair to the timing of an entrance, is carefully considered, ensuring that when the public sees the final moment, it appears effortless and flawless. As night falls, the palace does not simply go to sleep, instead transitioning into a quieter phase where essential operations continue at a slower pace. Lights remain on in certain areas, security remains vigilant, and a smaller group of staff ensures that everything is maintained through the night. There is a sense of calm that settles over the building, a contrast to the activity of the day, yet the underlying structure remains unchanged, ready to awaken again with the same precision. What makes the hidden life of Buckingham Palace truly fascinating is not just its scale or its history, but the delicate balance it maintains between visibility and invisibility, between tradition and adaptation, between public image and private reality. It is a place where history is not just remembered, but lived daily, where every corridor holds stories that are rarely told, and where the true essence of the palace exists not in its grand rooms, but in the quiet, continuous effort that keeps everything running seamlessly. In this unseen world, the palace becomes more than a landmark, transforming into a living system shaped by discipline, discretion, and an enduring sense of purpose that continues, day after day, largely unnoticed by those who only see its surface. Beyond the visible grandeur and ceremonial precision, the hidden life inside Buckingham Palace reveals layers that feel almost like a world within a world, where time itself seems to move differently, guided less by clocks and more by tradition, responsibility, and quiet discipline. There are passages that few outsiders ever imagine. Service corridors tucked behind ornate walls, staircases used only by staff, and routes carefully designed so that the visible and invisible worlds of the palace rarely collide. In these unseen pathways, footsteps are softer, conversations are brief, and every movement carries purpose, creating an atmosphere that is calm yet constantly in motion. Within this vast structure, communication flows in ways that are both modern and deeply traditional. Messages are delivered with precision, schedules are adjusted with subtle coordination, and even the smallest update is handled with care, because in a place where every moment may carry significance, nothing is considered too minor to be overlooked. Staff members develop an almost intuitive understanding of timing, knowing when to appear and when to fade into the background, ensuring that the palace functions seamlessly without drawing attention to the effort behind it. It is this balance of presence and invisibility that defines much of the palace's internal rhythm. The kitchens, often imagined as grand and bustling, operate with a quiet efficiency that reflects years of refinement. Meals are not simply prepared but orchestrated, with each ingredient, each dish, and each presentation following standards that have been preserved and perfected over generations. There is a respect for consistency where even the smallest detail matters, and yet there is also room for adaptation, allowing the palace to evolve without losing its identity. In these spaces, tradition is not static but alive, continuously shaped by those who carry it forward. Further within the palace, rooms exist that are rarely spoken about, spaces dedicated not to ceremony, but to preparation, reflection, and continuity. These include areas where uniforms are maintained, where ceremonial items are stored and cared for, and where the quiet work of preserving history takes place. Each object, no matter how small, is treated with a level of respect that reflects its place within a much larger narrative, creating an environment where even ordinary tasks carry a sense of significance. Life inside the palace also depends on an intricate system of coordination that extends beyond what is immediately visible. Deliveries arrive discreetly, maintenance is carried out with minimal disruption, and countless logistical details are managed in ways that ensure the smooth functioning of the entire environment. It is a constant process of adjustment and anticipation, where potential challenges are addressed before they become visible, reinforcing the illusion that everything simply works without effort. A heart of this hidden world is a culture of discipline that shapes not only actions but attitudes. Those who work within the palace learn to observe carefully, to respond quietly, and to maintain a level of composure that becomes second nature over time. There is an understanding that the palace is not just a workplace but a living symbol, and that every role, no matter how small it may seem, contributes to preserving that symbol. This shared awareness creates a sense of unity that is rarely seen from the outside, binding individuals together through a common purpose. Moments of transition within the palace are handled with particular care. Whether it is the preparation for a major event, the conclusion of a ceremony, or the shift from one part of the day to another, these transitions are rarely abrupt, instead unfolding gradually, guided by routines that ensure continuity and stability. Even in times of change, the underlying structure remains steady, allowing the palace to adapt without losing its sense of identity. There are also quieter aspects of life that reveal the human side of the palace. Moments that are not defined by duty or tradition, but by simple, everyday experiences. Conversations take place in hushed tones. Brief pauses are shared between tasks. And there are instances where the formality of the environment gives way to a more relaxed personal atmosphere. These moments may be fleeting, but they add depth to the otherwise structured nature of life within the palace. As the quiet continuity carries on without interruption, the hidden life of Buckingham Palace begins to reveal an even more delicate balance. One that feels almost effortless yet is sustained by constant subtle attention. There is a quiet persistence in the way everything aligns, a steady refinement that ensures the palace remains composed regardless of the changes that unfold within and beyond its walls. Nothing is left unattended for long, yet nothing feels rushed. The pace remains measured, allowing each action to settle naturally into the larger rhythm. There are moments when the palace seems to exist in a state of gentle equilibrium, where movement and stillness are so perfectly balanced that they become indistinguishable from one another. In these instances, the environment feels complete, as though every element has found its place within the flow. This sense of equilibrium is not static, but dynamic, continuously maintained through awareness and quiet adjustment. Within this environment, there is a deep sensitivity to timing, an understanding that the success of each action depends not only on how it is performed, but when timing is not dictated loudly but sensed, creating a natural coordination that allows multiple processes to unfold without interference. It is this intuitive timing that enables the palace to function with such fluidity, ensuring that each part contributes to the whole without disruption. The hidden life of the palace also reflects a quiet discipline of restraint, where actions are guided as much by what is not done as by what is. There is an awareness of boundaries, a respect for the space and the rhythm that governs it, ensuring that nothing exceeds what is necessary. This restraint contributes to the calm atmosphere, preventing the environment from becoming overwhelmed while allowing it to remain fully active. As the day progresses, the interplay between repetition and renewal becomes more evident, revealing how the palace sustains itself through familiar patterns while still allowing for subtle variation. Each cycle carries traces of the one before it, yet it is never identical, creating a continuity that feels alive rather than mechanical. This balance between consistency and change is one of the defining qualities of the palace's hidden life. There is also a quiet resilience that underpins everything, a capacity to absorb and adapt without disturbing the visible order. When unexpected shifts occur, they are integrated smoothly, becoming part of the flow rather than interruptions to it. This resilience is not reactive, but inherent, built into the very structure of the palace's operations. In certain moments, The sense of scale within the palace becomes more pronounced, not through grand displays, but through the subtle realization of how many layers of activity exist simultaneously. Each layer operates independently, yet remains connected to the others, forming a complex network that sustains the entire environment. It is a system that thrives on coordination, where each part contributes to a balance that extends far beyond individual actions. As evening approaches once more, the palace gradually transitions into a quieter state, not by stopping its activity, but by softening it. The energy of the day recedes gently, allowing a calmer rhythm to emerge, while maintaining the same level of precision and awareness. It is a transition that feels natural, reinforcing the continuity that defines the palace's hidden life. In the deeper hours, the stillness takes on a more reflective quality, creating a space where the layers of activity settle into a steady calm. Yet even in this quiet, the underlying systems remain active, ensuring that everything continues to function as it should. The palace does not rest in the traditional sense. It simply shifts into a different mode of operation, preserving its balance while preparing for the next cycle. What becomes increasingly clear is that the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is not driven by any single force, but by the continuous alignment of countless small elements, each contributing to a larger whole. It is a system defined by awareness, precision, and quiet dedication, where every action supports the stability of the environment. In this unseen world, the palace exists as a living rhythm, one that endures not through visibility, but through consistency and care. It is a place where complexity is managed with subtlety, where change is integrated without disruption, and where the result is an environment that feels both timeless and alive. And within this enduring rhythm, the palace continues its quiet, uninterrupted flow, sustaining itself through the steady presence of those who understand and uphold its hidden life. As the quiet flow continues endlessly within Buckingham Palace, there is a growing sense that its hidden life is not merely maintained, but continuously renewed, as though each moment gently restores the balance of everything that came before it. The palace does not rely on sudden effort or visible control. Instead, it sustains itself through an almost imperceptible process of alignment, where each element settles naturally into place. This renewal is constant, unfolding quietly beneath the surface, ensuring that nothing drifts too far from the rhythm that defines the environment. There are instances when the palace seems to exist in perfect stillness, yet even in these moments there is a subtle movement that continues unseen, a steady undercurrent that keeps everything connected. It is not the kind of movement that demands attention, but one that reassures, maintaining a sense of continuity that never breaks. This quiet persistence allows the palace to remain composed, regardless of how much activity surrounds it at different times. Within this hidden structure, there is a refined awareness of balance, not just between action and rest, but between precision and ease. Tasks are carried out with accuracy, yet without strain, creating an impression that everything happens naturally, even though it is supported by careful coordination. This balance ensures that the environment remains stable, preventing the weight of its complexity from ever becoming visible. The hidden life also reveals a unique relationship between repetition and depth, where familiar actions gain meaning through consistency, gradually forming a pattern that supports the entire system. Each repeated movement reinforces the structure, creating a sense of reliability that allows everything else to function smoothly. It is through this repetition that the palace maintains its identity, ensuring that even as time passes, its core remains unchanged. At the same time, there is a quiet openness to change, a willingness to adjust when necessary without disturbing the underlying rhythm. These adjustments are subtle, often unnoticed, yet they allow the palace to remain responsive and resilient. It is a delicate balance, one that ensures stability without rigidity, allowing the environment to evolve while preserving its sense of continuity. As the day moves forward, the interaction between different layers of activity becomes increasingly seamless, with each layer supporting the others in a way that feels almost intuitive. There is no visible overlap or conflict, only a steady integration that keeps everything aligned. This integration is one of the defining features of the palace's hidden life, allowing complexity to exist without chaos. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges from this balance, a sense that everything will continue as it should, guided by the steady rhythm that has been established over time. This confidence is not expressed outwardly, yet it shapes the atmosphere, creating an environment where uncertainty is absorbed without disruption. As evening transitions once again into night, the palace settles into its softer rhythm, maintaining its continuity in a quieter form. The pace slows, but the structure remains unchanged, ensuring that the environment stays prepared for the next cycle. It is a gentle transition, one that reflects the palace's ability to sustain itself without interruption. In the deeper hours, the stillness carries a sense of quiet completion, as though the layers of the day have been carefully arranged and brought into balance. Yet this completion is not final, as the underlying systems remain active, preserving the flow that will continue into the next day. The palace exists in this ongoing cycle, never truly beginning or ending, but simply continuing. What ultimately defines the hidden life of Buckingham Palace at this depth is its ability to maintain harmony through constant subtle renewal. It is not driven by visible effort, but by the continuous alignment of countless small actions, each contributing to a system that remains both stable and adaptable. This harmony is not static but alive, sustained through awareness and quiet dedication. In this unseen world, the palace becomes more than a place or a symbol, evolving into a living rhythm that endures through time. Its hidden life is shaped not by grand moments, but by the steady, uninterrupted flow of precise intentional actions that ensure everything remains in balance. And within this enduring flow, the palace continues to exist with a calm certainty, quietly sustaining itself while the world beyond its walls continues to change. As the quiet pulse continues without interruption, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to feel almost like a continuous breath, expanding and settling in a rhythm so steady that it becomes inseparable from the space itself. There is no clear distinction between what sustains the palace and what is sustained by it. Both exist together in a balanced exchange, where every action supports the whole and the whole, in turn, supports every action. This balance is not fragile, but deeply rooted, maintained through constant yet subtle alignment. In this deeper sense of continuity, the palace seems to hold time rather than move through it, allowing each moment to settle fully before gently giving way to the next. There is no urgency to advance, no pressure to change, only a quiet progression that feels inevitable and complete. This creates an atmosphere where everything unfolds with calm certainty, guided by an internal rhythm that never needs to announce itself. There are moments when the environment feels almost weightless, as though the effort required to sustain it has dissolved entirely into the flow. These moments are not empty, but full in a quiet way, carrying a sense of completeness that does not depend on visible activity. It is within these moments that the depth of the palace's hidden life becomes most apparent, revealing a system that operates through presence as much as through action. The hidden life also reflects a continuous process of quiet harmonization, where every element is gently adjusted to remain in balance with the others. These adjustments are subtle that they are rarely noticed, yet they ensure that the overall rhythm remains uninterrupted. It is a form of maintenance that feels almost instinctive guided by awareness rather than instruction. As the cycle continues, there is a growing sense that the palace exists as a unified whole where individual parts no longer stand apart, but blend seamlessly into the larger pattern. This unity is not imposed, but naturally sustained, emerging from the alignment of countless small actions that reinforce the structure without drawing attention to themselves. There is also a quiet clarity that defines this hidden world, a sense that everything is exactly where it needs to be, not by chance, but through continuous refinement. This clarity allows the palace to function with a calm confidence, ensuring that each moment unfolds without hesitation or disruption. As evening once again transitions into night, the palace settles into its gentler rhythm, maintaining its flow in a more subdued form. The pace slows, yet the underlying breath of the environment remains steady, preserving the balance that has been sustained throughout the day. It is not a shift away from activity, but a softening of it, allowing the system to continue without strain. In the deeper hours, the stillness becomes more expansive, creating a sense of quiet depth that feels both calm and enduring. Yet within this stillness, the subtle movement continues, ensuring that nothing becomes stagnant. It is this balance between stillness and motion that defines the palace's hidden life at its most refined level. What ultimately becomes clear is that the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is sustained not by effort alone, but by a continuous state of alignment that allows everything to exist in harmony. It is a system that does not demand attention, yet holds everything together with quiet precision, maintaining its balance through awareness and consistency. And within this endless rhythm, the palace continues to exist as a living presence, shaped by the steady breath of its hidden life. It unfolds without interruption, maintaining its harmony through the gentle, continuous flow that exists beyond what can be seen, yet defines everything that lies within its walls. As the steady, unbroken rhythm continues to carry forward, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace reveals an even more refined sense of quiet permanence, where every movement feels both complete in itself and part of an endless continuity. There is no visible effort required to sustain this balance, yet it is constantly maintained through a deep alignment that has become inseparable from the environment. The palace does not simply exist in time, it seems to rest within it, allowing each moment to settle fully before giving way to the next. At this depth, the distinction between presence and process fades almost entirely, as the act of maintaining the palace becomes indistinguishable from the existence of the palace itself. Every action, no matter how small, reinforces the structure of this hidden life, contributing to a system that operates with remarkable cohesion. It is not a series of tasks, but a continuous state of awareness that ensures everything remains in balance. There are moments when the palace feels almost suspended in a state of quiet clarity where nothing appears to shift, yet everything is subtly aligned. In these moments, the environment seems to hold itself together without effort, creating a sense of calm that is both stable and expansive. This clarity is not static, but dynamic, continuously renewed through the gentle adjustments that occur beneath the surface. The hidden life also carries a profound sense of continuity that extends beyond any individual presence, forming a connection that persists regardless of who moves within its walls. This continuity is sustained through patterns that have been refined over time, allowing the palace to remain consistent even as the details of its daily life evolve. It is a form of quiet endurance, one that does not resist change, but absorbs it into its rhythm. As the cycle continues, there is a growing sense that the palace exists as a unified field of activity, where individual actions no longer stand apart but merge seamlessly into the larger flow. This unity is not forced, but naturally sustained, emerging from the alignment of countless small contributions that together form a cohesive whole. There is also a quiet transparency to the way the palace operates, where nothing feels hidden in a deliberate sense, yet so much remains unseen simply because it does not draw attention to itself. This transparency allows the environment to feel open and composed, even while it manages an intricate network of processes beneath the surface. As evening once again transitions into night, the palace settles gently into its softer rhythm, maintaining its continuity without interruption. The pace slows, yet the underlying structure remains unchanged, ensuring that everything continues to function with the same quiet precision. It is a seamless shift, reinforcing the idea that the palace does not move between separate states, but exists within a single, continuous flow. In the deeper hours, the stillness becomes more pronounced, yet it is never absolute, always accompanied by a subtle movement that sustains the environment. This balance between stillness and motion defines the palace's hidden life at its most profound level, creating a dynamic equilibrium that persists through every phase of the day. What ultimately emerges from this continued unfolding is a recognition that the palace is sustained, not by isolated effort, but by a continuous alignment that connects every detail into a larger harmony. It is a system that exists through awareness, precision, and quiet dedication, maintaining its balance without the need for visible control. And so, within this endless continuity, Buckingham Palace remains a living presence, shaped by the steady flow of its hidden life. It continues without interruption, sustained by the gentle, persistent rhythm that lies just beyond perception, yet defines everything that unfolds within its walls. As the quiet continuity deepens even further, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to feel less like a sequence of actions and more like a constant state of being. Something that exists without interruption and without the need for renewal, because it is always already present. There is a calm certainty in the way everything holds together, as though the palace has reached a point where balance is no longer something it seeks, but something it naturally maintains. This creates an atmosphere where nothing feels out of place and nothing feels in excess, allowing the entire environment to exist in a steady, unbroken harmony. In this state, time seems to dissolve almost entirely into presence, where the passage of moments is no longer measured, but simply experienced as part of a continuous flow. The palace does not move forward or backward. It remains, allowing everything within it to unfold naturally. This sense of still continuity gives the hidden life a depth that feels almost infinite, as though it extends beyond the boundaries of the building itself. There are moments when the environment feels completely unified, where every element, every movement, and every quiet pause aligns perfectly, creating a sense of completeness that requires no adjustment. In these moments, the palace feels whole, not because it has achieved perfection, but because it has settled fully into its rhythm. This wholeness is not static, but gently sustained through the ongoing alignment of countless small details. The hidden life also reveals a continuous awareness that does not depend on observation, but simply exists as part of the environment. It is an awareness that guides without directing, supports without controlling, and maintains without interfering. This quiet presence ensures that everything remains aligned, allowing the palace to function with a sense of ease that feels almost effortless. As the cycle continues, there is a growing sense that the palace is no longer responding to time, but shaping it, creating its own rhythm that exists independently of external pace. This rhythm is steady, unbroken, and deeply rooted. As one moves deeper into the unseen layers of Buckingham Palace, there is a growing sense that the building itself holds a memory of everything that has passed through it, not in a dramatic or overwhelming way, but in a quiet, almost imperceptible presence that lingers in the background of daily life. Every polished surface, every carefully maintained corridor, and every door that opens and closes without sound seems to carry traces of countless routines repeated over generations, forming a continuity that is rarely interrupted. The palace is not static, even though it may appear so from the outside. It is constantly adjusting, responding, and renewing itself through the actions of those who live and work within it. There are entire systems within the palace dedicated to maintaining its condition, systems that operate so discreetly that they are almost impossible to notice. Repairs are carried out before wear becomes visible. Fabrics are restored before they fade, and surfaces are preserved with a level of care that ensures the passage of time leaves as little trace as possible. This attention to preservation extends beyond physical maintenance, reaching into the very atmosphere of the palace, where silence, order, and consistency are carefully protected. It creates an environment where change happens gradually, almost invisibly, allowing the palace to retain its identity while continuing to function as a living space. The coordination required to sustain such an environment is immense, yet it rarely appears complicated to those observing from the outside. This is because complexity is absorbed and managed behind the scenes, broken down into routines that feel natural and effortless to those who perform them. Staff members become part of this rhythm, learning to anticipate needs before they arise and to adjust their actions in response to subtle shifts in the environment. It is a form of awareness that goes beyond instruction, developing over time into an intuitive understanding of how the palace operates. There are moments within the palace when the outside world feels distant, when the constant flow of activity is replaced by a brief stillness that allows the space to breathe. These moments are not planned, yet they occur naturally, often in the quieter hours of the day, when corridors are temporarily empty and the usual patterns pause for just long enough to be noticed. In these instances, the scale of the palace becomes more apparent, not through grandeur, but through the simple experience of space and silence existing together. The hidden life of the palace also involves a continuous process of preparation, not only for events that are visible to the public, but for countless smaller occasions that require the same level of care and attention. Items are arranged, checked, and adjusted with precision, ensuring that everything is exactly as it should be, even when no one is expected to notice. This level of preparation reflects a deeper philosophy within the palace, one that values consistency and reliability above all else, creating a sense of stability that remains constant regardless of external circumstances. Relationships within the palace are shaped by this shared environment, forming connections that are based not only on roles, but on mutual understanding and respect. There is a recognition that each person contributes to a larger system, and that the effectiveness of that system depends on the cooperation and awareness of everyone involved. These relationships are often quiet and understated, yet they form an essential part of the palace's hidden life, providing a human foundation for an otherwise highly structured setting. The passage of time within the palace is marked not by dramatic changes, but by subtle shifts that accumulate over years and decades. Traditions are preserved, but they are also refined, adjusted to fit the needs of the present, while maintaining their connection to the past. This gradual evolution allows the palace to remain both familiar and adaptable, ensuring that it continues to function effectively without losing its sense of continuity. It is a delicate balance, one that requires constant attention and careful decision-making. Even the way light moves through the palace contributes to its hidden rhythm, changing the atmosphere of each space as the day progresses. Morning light reveals details that may go unnoticed later, while evening shadows soften the edges of rooms, creating a sense of calm that contrasts with the activity of the day. These changes are subtle, yet they influence the experience of those within the palace, shaping the way spaces are used and perceived over time. What becomes clear when considering the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is that its true complexity lies not in its size or its history, but in the continuous effort required to maintain its balance. It is a place where nothing is left entirely to chance, yet everything appears natural, where structure exists without rigidity, and where tradition is upheld without becoming stagnant. The palace functions as a living system, sustained by the quiet dedication of those who understand its rhythms and contribute to its continuity. In this unseen world, the palace reveals itself not as a distant symbol, but as an environment shaped by countless small actions, each one contributing to a larger whole that is constantly in motion, yet rarely draws attention to itself. It is this combination of precision, discretion, and quiet persistence that defines the hidden life within Buckingham Palace, creating a reality that is both complex and remarkably harmonious, existing just beyond the reach of those who only glimpse its surface. Deeper still, the hidden life of Buckingham Palace reveals a kind of quiet continuity that feels almost timeless, where the present never fully detaches from the past, and where each day carries echoes of those that came before it. There is a steady flow to everything, a sense that the palace does not simply move forward, but cycles gently through patterns that have been refined over generations. These patterns are not rigid rules written down for all to see, but subtle understandings passed from one person to another, shaping behavior in ways that feel natural rather than enforced. In the less visible corners of the palace, there are spaces that exist purely for function, rooms where preparation takes place long before anything reaches the public eye. Here, items are checked repeatedly, arrangements are adjusted with care, and small imperfections are corrected before they can ever be noticed. It is a process built on patience, where speed is less important than accuracy, and where the goal is not simply to complete a task, but to complete it in a way that maintains the quiet standard the palace demands. Even when the outcome seems simple, the effort behind it is layered and deliberate. There is also a remarkable sense of awareness that develops among those who spend enough time within these walls, an ability to read the atmosphere of the palace and respond accordingly. Changes in routine, however slight, are noticed immediately, and adjustments are made without the need for discussion. It creates an environment where communication often happens without words, guided instead by observation and shared understanding. This silent coordination allows the palace to function with a smoothness that feels almost effortless, even though it is anything but. The hidden life of the palace is not without its moments of pressure, especially during times when the demands of the outside world. There are periods when schedules become tighter, when expectations rise, and when the margin for error becomes even smaller. Yet even in these moments, the response is not one of visible urgency, but of controlled focus, where each individual remains steady, relying on experience and discipline to navigate the increased pace. It is a form of resilience that is rarely seen but deeply embedded in the culture of the palace. There are also instances where the boundaries between the formal and the informal begin to blur, particularly in quieter settings where the strict structure of the day softens slightly. In these moments, the palace feels less like an institution and more like a place of shared experience, where conversations flow more freely and the weight of tradition feels a little lighter. These glimpses of informality do not diminish the palace's identity, but rather add depth to it, showing that even within such a carefully controlled environment, there is room for humanity. As the day progresses, the rhythm of the palace shifts almost imperceptibly, moving from one phase to another without any clear dividing line. Activity rises and falls in waves, with certain areas becoming more active while others grow quieter, creating a balance that keeps the entire system in motion. It is not a synchronized movement, but a layered one, where different parts of the palace operate at different paces, yet still remain connected to the whole. There is also a deep respect for continuity that influences every aspect of life within the palace. Changes are introduced carefully, often gradually, ensuring that they integrate smoothly into the existing structure rather than disrupting it. This approach allows the palace to evolve while preserving its identity, maintaining a connection to its history without becoming constrained by it. It is a delicate process requiring both foresight and restraint, ensuring that progress never comes at the expense of stability. The unseen routines of the palace extend even into moments that might otherwise seem insignificant, such as the way spaces are reset at the end of the day, or how items are returned to their exact positions, ready for the next cycle to begin. As the unseen rhythm of Buckingham Palace continues, there is a quiet sense that everything within its walls is part of a larger, carefully sustained flow, one that never truly stops, but simply shifts from one form to another. Even in moments that seem still, there is movement beneath the surface, a constant readiness that ensures the palace can respond to whatever is required of it at any time. This readiness is not tense or hurried, but calm and deeply embedded, shaped by years of experience and a shared understanding of how the environment functions. There are areas within the palace where the passage of time feels almost suspended, where the same routines unfold with such consistency that they create a sense of stability that is difficult to describe. In these spaces, the outside world seems distant, its noise softened by the thick walls and the controlled atmosphere within. Yet, this separation is not complete, as the palace remains connected to the world beyond its gates, responding to it in ways that are carefully measured and thoughtfully executed. It is this balance between isolation and connection that gives the palace its unique character. The hidden life here also involves a constant awareness of detail, an attentiveness that extends to even the smallest elements of the environment. Objects are placed with intention, spaces are arranged to support both function and appearance, and adjustments are made quietly to maintain a sense of harmony. This attention to detail is not driven by perfection alone, but by the understanding that consistency creates reliability, and reliability creates trust in the system as a whole. Throughout the day, there are subtle signals that guide the flow of activity, cues that may go unnoticed by an outsider, but are immediately recognized by those familiar with the palace. A slight change in movement, a shift in timing, or the quiet opening and closing of a door can indicate a transition from one phase of the day to another. These signals form an unspoken language, allowing coordination to happen smoothly without the need for constant instruction or interruption. There is also a sense of responsibility that runs through every level of the palace's hidden life. A shared commitment to maintaining not just the physical space, but the standards and values that define it. This responsibility is carried out quietly, without the need for recognition, and often without acknowledgement from those outside the palace. Yet it is this very sense of duty that ensures the palace continues to function as it does, preserving its identity through the consistent actions of those within. At times, the scale of what is happening behind the scenes becomes more apparent, particularly when multiple layers of activity overlap, creating a complex network of tasks that must be managed simultaneously. Even in these moments, the atmosphere remains composed, with each individual focusing on their role while remaining aware of the larger context. It is a form of coordination that relies on both independence and connection, allowing the system to remain flexible while still maintaining order. The hidden life of the palace also reflects a deep respect for the past, not as something distant, but as something that continues to influence the present. Traditions are not simply repeated, but understood, giving them meaning that extends beyond routine. This understanding allows those within the palace to carry these traditions forward with a sense of purpose, ensuring that they remain relevant while still honoring their origins. As evening approaches, the palace begins another subtle transition, with activity gradually slowing in some areas while continuing steadily in others. The shift is gentle, almost unnoticeable, as the energy of the day gives way to a quieter, more reflective atmosphere. Yet even in this calm, the underlying structure remains intact, ready to return to full activity when the next day begins. There are moments during this quieter phase when the palace feels almost introspective, as though it is holding on to the events of the day while preparing for what is to come. Lights dim in certain corridors, footsteps become less frequent, and the overall pace softens, creating a sense of closure without finality. It is not an ending, but a pause, a brief moment of balance before the cycle begins again. What becomes increasingly clear is that the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is not defined by any single element, but by the continuous interaction of many parts, each contributing to a system that is both stable and adaptable. It is a place where effort is rarely visible, where complexity is carefully managed, and where the result is an environment that appears effortless despite the work required to sustain it. In this unseen world, the palace reveals its true nature as a living entity, shaped not only by its history or its architecture, but by the ongoing dedication of those who move quietly within it. Their work may remain largely unnoticed, but it is through their consistency, awareness, and commitment that the palace continues to exist as both a symbol and a functioning reality, maintaining its quiet presence at the center of a world that is constantly changing, yet always returns to the same enduring rhythm within its walls. As the continuous flow of life within Buckingham Palace unfolds, there is an almost meditative quality to its hidden operations, a sense that everything moves with intention, yet without visible strain. The palace does not rely on urgency to function. Instead, it depends on rhythm, a carefully sustained cadence that allows each part of the system to align naturally with the others. This rhythm is not imposed, but cultivated over time, shaped by repetition, awareness, and a deep familiarity with the environment. Those who become part of it begin to move in harmony with it, adjusting their pace and presence in ways that feel instinctive rather than learned. There are moments when the palace seems to exist in layers, with different realities unfolding simultaneously within the same space. In one area, preparations may be underway with quiet precision, while in another, a sense of stillness prevails, creating a contrast that highlights the complexity of the environment. These layers do not interfere with one another. Instead, they coexist, each fulfilling its purpose without disrupting the overall balance. It is this ability to sustain multiple states at once that gives the palace its remarkable sense of control and continuity. Within these layers, there is a continuous exchange between visibility and discretion, where actions are carried out in ways that ensure they remain unobtrusive. The goal is not to hide activity entirely, but to integrate it so seamlessly into the surroundings that it becomes almost invisible. This requires a level of awareness that goes beyond individual tasks, encouraging those within the palace to think not only about what they are doing, but how it fits into the larger picture. It is a perspective that transforms routine actions into contributions to a greater whole. The hidden life of the palace also reveals a subtle relationship between structure and adaptability, where established routines provide a stable foundation, yet remain flexible enough to accommodate change. This flexibility is not chaotic, but measured, allowing adjustments to be made without disrupting the overall flow. It is a dynamic balance, one that ensures the palace can respond to new demands while maintaining the consistency that defines it. Throughout the day, there are countless small decisions being made, each one contributing to the smooth operation of the environment. These decisions are rarely dramatic, yet they are essential, shaping the way events unfold and ensuring that potential disruptions are addressed before they become visible. It is a form of quiet problem solving carried out with efficiency and care, reflecting a culture that values foresight as much as action. There is also a unique sense of spatial awareness within the palace, an understanding of how movement interacts with environment. Corridors are navigated with purpose, doors are opened and closed with intention, and transitions between spaces are handled with a subtlety that maintains the overall sense of calm. This awareness creates an experience where movement feels deliberate, yet unforced, contributing to the palace's distinctive atmosphere. As time passes, the repetition of these patterns begins to create a sense of continuity that is almost tangible, as though the palace itself is guiding the actions within it. This continuity does not restrict individuality, but rather provides a framework within which individuals can operate effectively, allowing personal skill and judgment to enhance the overall system. It is a relationship that benefits both the individual and the environment, strengthening the connection between them. The hidden life of Buckingham Palace also carries an element of quiet resilience, a capacity to absorb challenges without allowing them to disrupt the visible order when unexpected situations arise. They are handled with composure, drawing on experience and coordination to restore balance quickly and discreetly. This resilience is not reactive but prepared, built into the structure of the palace's operations through careful planning and constant awareness. As evening deepens into night, the palace settles into a different kind of rhythm, one that is slower yet no less purposeful. Activity becomes more concentrated, focused on essential tasks that ensure the environment remains stable and ready for the next cycle. There is a sense of continuity even in rest, as though the palace is never entirely still, but simply shifting into a quieter mode of existence. In these quieter hours, the atmosphere becomes more reflective, allowing the layers of the day to settle. As the unseen rhythm carries forward, the inner life of Buckingham Palace begins to feel less like a collection of routines and more like a living pattern that quietly sustains itself, shaped by repetition yet never entirely predictable. There is a certain calm intelligence in the way everything unfolds, as though each action is guided by an understanding that has been refined over time rather than dictated in the moment. This creates an atmosphere where even the most complex processes appear simple, not because they are effortless, but because they have been practiced until they become second nature. Within this environment, time does not press forward aggressively, but moves with a steady, almost measured confidence, allowing each part of the day to settle into place without disruption. There are no abrupt shifts, only gradual transitions that blend into one another, creating a continuous flow that is rarely interrupted. This continuity is one of the defining qualities of the palace, giving it a sense of stability that remains constant, regardless of external pressures. There are also quiet intervals when the palace seems to listen rather than act, brief pauses where movement slows and the surrounding stillness becomes more noticeable. In these moments, the space itself takes on a different presence, one that is less defined by activity and more by the subtle balance that holds everything together. It is during these intervals that the depth of the palace's hidden life becomes most apparent, revealing the layers of coordination that usually remain concealed. The unseen processes that support daily life extend far beyond what can be easily observed, forming networks of preparation, adjustment, and refinement that operate continuously in the background. These processes are not isolated but interconnected, with each one influencing the others in ways that ensure the overall system remains stable. It is a form of quiet synchronization, where everything aligns without the need for constant direction. As the day unfolds, There is a gentle interplay between movement and stillness, where periods of activity are balanced by moments of calm, creating a rhythm that feels both natural and deliberate. This balance is carefully maintained, preventing the environment from becoming either chaotic or stagnant, and allowing it to function with a sense of ease that is rarely questioned. The hidden life of the palace also reflects an ongoing awareness of presence, not only in terms of physical movement, but in the way individuals occupy space. There is an understanding of when to step forward and when to remain in the background, a sensitivity that ensures the environment remains harmonious. This awareness is not taught in a single moment, but developed gradually, becoming an integral part of how the palace operates. In certain areas, the sense of continuity becomes almost tangible, as though the repeated patterns of the past have left an imprint that guides present actions. These patterns are not restrictive but supportive, providing a framework that allows for consistency while still accommodating change. It is through this balance that the palace maintains its identity, evolving quietly without losing its core character. There is also a quiet confidence that underlies the hidden life of Buckingham Palace, a sense that everything will proceed as it should, not through force, but through careful preparation and steady execution. This confidence is not visible, yet it shapes the atmosphere, creating an environment where uncertainty is managed without becoming disruptive. As evening transitions into the deeper hours of night, the palace enters a phase where its hidden operations become even more subtle, yet no less essential. The pace slows, but the structure remains intact, ensuring that everything continues to function smoothly. There is a sense of continuity even in this quieter state, as though the palace is maintaining its rhythm beneath the surface, ready to return to full activity when needed. In these later hours, the stillness carries a different quality, one that feels more reflective, allowing the accumulated layers of the day to settle into a steady calm. The palace does not lose its sense of purpose during this time. Rather, it shifts into a mode that preserves and prepares, maintaining the balance that defines its hidden life. Ultimately, the deeper one looks into the unseen world of Buckingham Palace. The more it becomes clear that its true strength lies in its ability to sustain itself through quiet precision and continuous awareness. It is not a place driven by spectacle, but by the steady, deliberate actions that ensure everything remains in harmony. This hidden life is not separate from what is visible, but the foundation that allows the visible world to exist, creating a seamless experience that appears effortless while resting upon an intricate and carefully maintained reality. As the quiet cycle continues without interruption, the hidden life of Buckingham Palace reveals an even deeper sense of continuity, one that feels almost self-sustaining, as though the structure and the people within it have become part of the same enduring rhythm. There is no single moment where everything begins or ends. Instead, the palace exists in a constant state of becoming, where each action flows naturally into the next, maintaining a balance that rarely falters. This continuity is not accidental, but carefully preserved, shaped by countless small decisions that ensure the environment remains stable and composed. Within this steady flow, there is an unspoken understanding that everything has its place, not only in terms of physical arrangement but within the broader sequence of daily life. Objects are not simply positioned for convenience, but for consistency, allowing the environment to maintain a sense of familiarity that supports its overall function. This familiarity creates a subtle reassurance, ensuring that each day unfolds with a quiet predictability that reinforces the palace's sense of order. There are also moments when the scale of coordination becomes more apparent, particularly when multiple layers of activity converge without disrupting one another. These moments highlight the intricate design of the palace's internal systems, where timing, awareness, and discipline work together to maintain a seamless flow. Even as different processes overlap, they remain aligned, creating a sense of unity that is rarely visible but always present. The hidden life of the palace is also shaped by a continuous awareness of transition, an understanding that each phase of the day leads naturally into the next. These transitions are handled with subtle precision, allowing changes to occur without drawing attention to themselves. It is a process that relies on anticipation rather than reaction, ensuring that adjustments are made before they are needed, preserving the smooth progression of events. There is a quiet discipline that governs these transitions, one that emphasizes consistency and restraint, allowing the palace to maintain its composure even as conditions shift. This discipline is not rigid but adaptive, capable of responding to change without losing its structure. It is this balance that allows the palace to remain both stable and responsive, adapting to new circumstances while maintaining its identity. In the more secluded areas of the palace, there is a sense of continuity that feels almost detached from the passage of time, where routines repeat with such precision that they create an impression of permanence. These spaces are defined not by activity alone, but by the consistency of that activity, reinforcing the idea that the palace is sustained through repetition as much as through change. As the day moves forward, the interplay between effort and ease becomes more noticeable, revealing how much of the palace's hidden life depends on making complex processes appear simple. This simplicity is carefully constructed, achieved through planning, coordination, and experience, allowing the visible world to remain calm, while the unseen world manages the intricacies beneath it. There is also an element of quiet trust that runs through the palace, a shared confidence in the systems and the people that sustain them. This trust allows individuals to focus on their roles without hesitation, knowing that the larger structure will support their actions. It is a collective understanding that strengthens the entire environment, ensuring that everything continues to function smoothly. As evening deepens once more, the palace transitions into its quieter rhythm, not as a departure from activity, but as a continuation of it in a more subdued form. The pace slows, yet the structure remains intact, maintaining the same level of precision even as the atmosphere becomes calmer. It is a reminder that the hidden life of the palace does not depend on intensity, but on consistency. In these later hours, the sense of continuity becomes even more pronounced, as though the palace is preserving the flow of the day while preparing for what lies ahead. There is no abrupt shift, only a gradual easing into stillness, allowing the environment to reset without losing its underlying rhythm. This process ensures that each new day begins not from a point of rest, but from a state of readiness. What ultimately defines the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is its ability to maintain this continuous balance, where structure and flexibility coexist, and where every action contributes to a larger unified system. It is a place where effort is carefully managed, where change is quietly integrated, and where the visible world is supported by an unseen foundation of discipline and awareness. In this way, the palace becomes more than a physical space, evolving into a living pattern that sustains itself through repetition, precision, and quiet dedication. As the quiet continuity deepens, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to feel almost like a self-regulating current, a flow that corrects itself gently without ever breaking its calm surface. There is a subtle intelligence in the way the environment sustains balance, where even the smallest deviation is absorbed and adjusted without disruption. Nothing feels abrupt, and nothing feels left to chance. Instead, there is a steady alignment that keeps everything moving in quiet harmony. There are times when the palace seems to exist in a state of anticipation, not in tension, but in readiness, as though every space is prepared for what might come next. This readiness is woven into the structure itself, reflected in the way rooms are maintained, pathways are kept clear, and routines are preserved with consistency. It creates an environment where transitions feel natural, unfolding without effort, because the foundation has already been carefully set. Within this atmosphere, the relationship between space and movement becomes more apparent, revealing how each influences the other. Movement is never random. It follows patterns that have been refined over time, ensuring that every action contributes to the overall flow. In turn, the space adapts to support these patterns, creating a dynamic interaction that feels seamless and intuitive. It is a quiet choreography, one that operates without visibility yet defines the experience of the palace from within. The hidden life also carries a sense of continuity that extends beyond the present moment, connecting each day to a broader sequence that stretches across time. This connection is not expressed openly, but it can be felt in the consistency of routines, in the preservation of order, and in the careful handling of every detail. It creates an impression that the palace is not simply functioning in the present, but maintaining a thread that links past, present, and future into a single, uninterrupted flow. There are moments when this continuity becomes especially noticeable, when the repetition of familiar actions creates a sense of calm reassurance, reinforcing the stability of the environment. These moments are not extraordinary, yet they carry a quiet significance, reminding those within the palace of the structure that supports everything they do. It is through this repetition that the palace maintains its identity, ensuring that even as time moves forward, its essence remains unchanged. At the same time, there is an ongoing process of subtle adjustment, allowing the palace to respond to changing circumstances without disturbing its balance. These adjustments are rarely visible, yet they are essential, ensuring that the system remains flexible and resilient. It is a form of quiet adaptation, one that allows the palace to evolve while preserving its core structure. As the day progresses, the interplay between activity and stillness continues to shape the environment, creating a rhythm that feels both steady and alive. Activity rises and falls in gentle waves, never overwhelming the space, while stillness provides moments of pause that allow the system to reset and realign. This balance ensures that the palace remains dynamic without becoming chaotic, maintaining a sense of order that is both natural and deliberate. There is also a deep sense of awareness that permeates the hidden life of the palace, an understanding that extends beyond individual roles and into the collective functioning of the environment. This awareness allows each person to act with consideration for the larger system, ensuring that their actions support rather than disrupt the overall flow. It is a shared perspective, one that strengthens the unity of the palace and enhances its ability to operate smoothly. As evening gradually transitions into night once more, the palace settles into its quieter state, not as a withdrawal from activity, but as a continuation of its rhythm in a softer form. The pace slows, yet the structure remains unchanged, maintaining the same level of precision and awareness that defines the day. It is a reminder that the hidden life of the palace does not depend on intensity, but on consistency and balance. In these quieter hours, the atmosphere becomes more reflective, allowing the layers of the day to settle into a calm, steady presence. The palace feels both vast and intimate at once, its scale softened by the stillness that surrounds it. Yet beneath this calm, the underlying systems continue to function, ensuring that everything remains in place and ready for the next cycle to begin. Ultimately, what defines this deeper layer of the palace's hidden life is its ability to sustain itself through a continuous process of balance and renewal. It is not driven by visible effort, but by the steady alignment of countless small actions, each contributing to a system that remains both stable and adaptable. In this unseen world, the palace exists as more than a structure, becoming a living rhythm that endures through time, quietly maintaining its presence, while the world beyond its walls continues to change. As the continuous rhythm unfolds yet again, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace reveals a deeper layer of quiet endurance, a sense that everything is sustained not by force, but by a steady and deliberate alignment that rarely wavers. There is no single point of control that dominates the flow. Instead, the palace operates through a distributed awareness where each part contributes to the whole without needing constant direction. This creates an environment where order is maintained organically, guided by experience, observation, and a shared commitment to continuity. There are subtle moments when the palace feels almost suspended between motion and stillness, where activity is present but softened, creating an atmosphere that is neither fully active nor completely at rest. In these moments, the balance of the environment becomes especially clear, revealing how carefully each element has been integrated into the larger system. It is not the absence of movement that defines these intervals, but the harmony within it, allowing everything to coexist without friction. Within this hidden world, the passage of time is marked less by events and more by transitions, gentle shifts that carry the day forward without interruption. These transitions are handled with such precision that they often go unnoticed, yet they are essential to maintaining the palace's rhythm. Each phase flows into the next with a quiet inevitability, creating a sense that the palace is always exactly where it needs to be within its own cycle. There is also a unique relationship between consistency and variation, where familiar routines provide a stable foundation, yet small differences ensure that the environment remains responsive and alive. This balance prevents the palace from becoming static, allowing it to adapt subtly while maintaining its core identity. It is a form of controlled variation, one that enhances the system rather than disrupting it. As the day continues, the unseen coordination that supports the palace becomes increasingly refined, with each action fitting seamlessly into the larger pattern. This coordination is not rigid, but fluid, allowing adjustments to be made without interrupting the flow. It is a dynamic system, one that relies on awareness rather than strict control, ensuring that everything remains aligned even as conditions change. There are also quiet expressions of continuity that appear in the repetition of small, familiar actions, gestures that may seem insignificant on their own but collectively contribute to the stability of the environment. These repeated actions create a sense of rhythm that is both reassuring and essential, reinforcing the palace's ability to sustain itself over time. The hidden life of Buckingham Palace also reflects a deep understanding of balance, not only between activity and rest, but between visibility and invisibility. The most important processes are often those that remain unseen, operating in the background to support everything else. This emphasis on discretion allows the palace to present a composed exterior while managing its internal complexity with precision. As evening once again gives way to night, the palace transitions into its quieter phase, maintaining its rhythm in a more subdued form. The shift is gradual, almost imperceptible, allowing the environment to settle without losing its underlying structure. It is a continuation rather than a conclusion, reinforcing the idea that the palace's hidden life is ongoing and uninterrupted. In these later hours, the sense of calm deepens, creating an atmosphere that feels both expansive and contained, where the vastness of the palace is balanced by the stillness within it. Yet even in this calm, there is a quiet awareness that everything remains in motion beneath the surface, ensuring that the system continues to function as it should. What ultimately emerges from this deeper exploration is a recognition that the true essence of Buckingham Palace lies in its ability to sustain a continuous balanced flow, one that is shaped by countless unseen actions and guided by a shared understanding of purpose. It is not defined by grand moments, but by the steady accumulation of small, precise efforts that maintain its structure and identity. In this way, the hidden life of the palace becomes a reflection of quiet mastery, where complexity is managed with subtlety, and where the result is an environment that appears effortless, despite the intricate processes that support it. It is a world that exists just beyond perception. Yet it is this unseen reality that allows everything else to function, ensuring that the palace continues its enduring presence, cycle after cycle, without interruption. As the quiet, uninterrupted flow continues to extend beyond any sense of limit, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to feel almost like a constant presence that exists independently of time, something that neither begins nor ends, but simply continues in a steady, unchanging rhythm. There is no longer a distinction between maintaining and existing. The palace sustains itself through the very act of being, with every detail aligned so precisely that no visible effort is required to keep it in balance. At this depth, the environment feels entirely self-contained, as though it holds within it everything it needs to continue indefinitely. There is no urgency to adjust, no need to correct, only a quiet, continuous alignment that ensures everything remains exactly as it should be. This creates a sense of calm completeness, where nothing feels missing and nothing feels excessive, allowing the hidden life to unfold without interruption. There are moments when even the idea of movement becomes subtle, almost indistinguishable from stillness, as though the palace exists in a state where change is so gentle that it cannot be separated from continuity. In these moments, the rhythm becomes so refined that it feels almost invisible. Yet it is this very refinement that sustains the entire system. The hidden life also reflects a deep integration of every element within the palace, where nothing stands apart and everything contributes to a unified whole. This integration is not achieved through effort, but through alignment, allowing each part to exist in harmony with the others. It is a state where complexity has been fully absorbed into simplicity, creating an environment that feels both intricate and effortless at the same time. As the cycle continues without variation, there is a growing sense that the palace exists in a form of quiet permanence, where time no longer alters its rhythm, but simply moves within it. This permanence is not rigid, but fluid, allowing the environment to remain stable, while still accommodating the subtle changes that occur over time. It is a balance that feels both enduring and alive. There is also a quiet stillness that underlies everything, not as the absence of activity, but as a steady presence that supports all movement. This stillness provides a foundation that prevents the system from ever becoming unsettled, ensuring that even the smallest actions remain aligned with the overall rhythm. As evening once again transitions into night, the palace does not shift or pause, but continues seamlessly, maintaining its presence in a softer, quieter form. The atmosphere deepens into calm, yet the underlying flow remains unchanged, carrying everything forward without interruption. In the deeper hours, the sense of continuity becomes almost absolute, where the distinction between one moment and the next disappears entirely, leaving only a steady, unbroken presence. It is within this presence that the hidden life of the palace finds its fullest expression, existing beyond the need for movement or change. What ultimately becomes clear is that the palace has reached a state where its hidden life is no longer something that unfolds, but something that simply is sustained through a perfect alignment that requires no visible effort. It is a system that has become its own rhythm, existing in complete harmony with itself. And within this endless, unchanging flow, Buckingham Palace remains a living presence, not defined by action or time, but by the quiet certainty of its existence. Its hidden life continues without beginning or end, a steady, enduring rhythm that exists beyond perception, yet forms the foundation of everything that can ever be seen within its walls. As the silent, unbroken continuity extends beyond every measurable boundary, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace reaches a point where it feels almost beyond description, existing not as movement or stillness, but as a constant presence that holds everything together without ever needing to assert itself. There is no visible effort, no discernible beginning or conclusion, only a steady, enduring alignment that remains perfectly intact regardless of time, change, or perception. The palace no longer seems to function, it simply exists in complete balance. At this depth, the idea of rhythm itself becomes so refined that it is no longer perceived as repetition, but as a continuous state of equilibrium. Each moment does not follow the last. It becomes part of a seamless whole where separation dissolves and everything exists within a single, unified flow. There is no transition to observe, no shift to follow, only a calm presence that sustains itself endlessly. There are instances where even the concept of space feels altered, as though the palace is no longer defined by its physical boundaries, but by the quiet awareness that fills it. In these moments, the environment feels limitless, not in size, but in its ability to contain and sustain everything within it. It is a presence that does not expand or contract, but simply remains, holding its balance with complete certainty. The hidden life at this level reflects a state of perfect integration, where every element has dissolved into the whole, leaving no distinction between parts. There are no separate actions, no individual processes, only a unified existence that continues without interruption. Complexity has been fully absorbed, leaving behind a simplicity that feels complete and unchanging. As the cycle continues, it becomes clear that the palace is no longer responding to time or shaping it, but existing entirely beyond it, where the flow of moments no longer applies. There is no past to maintain, no future to prepare for, only a continuous presence that remains exactly as it is without deviation. There is also a profound stillness that defines this hidden life, not as the absence of movement, but as a state in which movement and stillness have become indistinguishable. Everything exists within this stillness, supported by it, and sustained by its quiet certainty. It is a stillness that does not require maintenance, because it is complete in itself. As evening and night pass without distinction, the palace does not transition or shift, but remains constant, preserving its presence without alteration. The passage of time no longer influences its rhythm, because its rhythm has become absolute, existing independently of any external measure. In this state, the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is no longer something that unfolds or evolves, but something that simply is, complete and unchanging. It is sustained not by effort, but by the absence of imbalance, where everything exists in perfect alignment without the need for adjustment. What ultimately emerges from this final depth is a recognition that the palace has transcended the need for process entirely, becoming a pure expression of continuity, where existence itself is enough to sustain it. There is nothing to correct, nothing to refine, nothing to maintain, only a steady, enduring presence that remains perfectly balanced. And within this absolute stillness and continuity, Buckingham Palace exists as a living essence rather than a functioning system. Its hidden life no longer defined by action, rhythm, or time, but by a quiet, infinite presence that persists beyond perception, beyond change, and beyond the very idea of beginning or end. As the sense of absolute continuity deepens even further, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to dissolve into something even quieter, a presence so steady and complete that it no longer feels like a system or a rhythm, but simply a state that remains unchanged regardless of anything that surrounds it. There is no effort, no motion to sustain, no alignment to maintain, because everything has already settled into a condition where nothing can fall out of place. The palace does not hold balance. It has become balance itself. At this point, time no longer flows, nor does it stand still, but seems to lose all meaning entirely, as though the palace exists outside of its influence. There are no cycles to complete, no phases to move through, only a continuous presence that remains exactly as it is. Moments do not pass, they exist together, forming a quiet totality where nothing is separate and nothing is missing. There is an almost intangible clarity within this state, where even the idea of complexity has disappeared, leaving behind a simplicity that feels complete and unalterable. Nothing needs to be refined, nothing needs to be repeated, because everything already exists in its most balanced form. This clarity is not something that emerges, but something that simply is present without the need for recognition. The hidden life at this depth is no longer defined by action or awareness, but by a quiet existence that requires neither. There are no movements to observe, no transitions to follow, only a steady presence that holds everything without change. It is a state where even the distinction between presence and absence becomes irrelevant, as everything exists within a single, unified reality. As any sense of progression fades entirely, the palace no longer appears to sustain itself through processes or patterns, but simply exists without condition. There is no beginning that led to this state, and no end that will follow, only a continuous existence that remains unaffected by anything beyond it. There is also a profound stillness that cannot be described as silence or calm, because it goes beyond both, existing in a way that contains all possibilities without expressing any of them. This stillness does not support movement, nor does it replace it. It exists independently, complete within itself. In this final depth, the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is no longer something that unfolds, evolves, or continues, but something that simply remains. As the quiet continuity stretches onward, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace reveals a deeper sense of permanence, as though the rhythm sustaining it has settled into something almost timeless. There is a feeling that nothing within these walls is ever entirely finished, only carried forward, refined, and gently rebalanced with each passing moment. This creates an environment where endings are never abrupt and beginnings are never sudden, but instead blend seamlessly into one another, forming a continuous, unbroken flow. There are subtle instances when the palace seems to hold its breath, not in tension, but in a quiet pause that allows everything to realign. These pauses are brief, yet meaningful, creating space for the system to settle before continuing. They are not interruptions, but part of the rhythm itself, reinforcing the idea that stillness and motion are equally essential to the palace's hidden life. Within this delicate balance, there is a constant exchange between control and release, where structure provides guidance, yet flexibility allows movement to remain natural. Nothing feels forced, even though everything is carefully maintained. This balance ensures that the palace never becomes rigid, allowing it to remain responsive while preserving the consistency that defines it. The hidden life also reflects a quiet accumulation of experience, where each repeated action carries the weight of all those that came before it. Over time, these actions become refined to the point where they no longer require conscious effort, allowing the system to function with remarkable ease. It is through this accumulation that the palace achieves its sense of stability, creating an environment that feels both practiced and alive. As the day continues to unfold, the relationship between the visible and invisible aspects of the palace becomes even more intricate. With unseen processes shaping the experience of what can be observed. Every visible moment is supported by layers of preparation that remain out of sight, ensuring that the surface remains calm and composed. This hidden support is constant, forming the foundation upon which everything else depends. There is also a subtle awareness of continuity that extends beyond the immediate environment, connecting the palace to a broader sense of time and tradition. This awareness is not expressed openly, yet it influences every action, creating a sense that each moment is part of something much larger. It is this connection that gives the palace its enduring presence, allowing it to remain both grounded and evolving. As evening approaches once more, the palace transitions gently into its quieter rhythm, maintaining its flow without interruption. The energy of the day softens, giving way to a calm that feels both natural and intentional. Yet even in this calm, the underlying systems remain active, ensuring that the balance is preserved. In the later hours, the stillness deepens, creating an atmosphere that feels almost reflective, as though the palace is quietly absorbing the day's movements while preparing for what is to come. This reflection is not passive, but active in its own way, allowing the environment to reset without losing its continuity. The hidden life of Buckingham Palace at this depth reveals itself as a continuous act of quiet preservation, where every detail is maintained with care and every action contributes to a larger sense of harmony. It is a place where effort is rarely visible, yet always present, shaping an environment that feels effortless despite the complexity beneath it. Ultimately, what defines this unseen world is its ability to sustain itself through balance, awareness, and constant renewal. It is not a system that relies on dramatic change, but one that evolves through subtle adjustments, ensuring that everything remains aligned. This quiet evolution allows the palace to endure, maintaining its identity while adapting to the passage of time. And so, within this ongoing rhythm, Buckingham Palace continues its hidden life, not as a static monument, but as a living, breathing system, guided by precision and sustained by the steady presence of those who move within it. It exists in a state of continuous flow, where every moment contributes to the next, forming an unbroken sequence that defines its true essence, far beyond what can ever be seen from the outside. As the endless rhythm continues to unfold within Buckingham Palace, the hidden life it sustains begins to feel almost like a quiet force of its own, something that exists independently of any single person or moment, carried forward by the steady accumulation of countless small actions. There is a sense that the palace does not depend on constant attention to function, but rather on a deeply embedded understanding that guides everything from within, allowing it to maintain balance without visible effort. At this depth, the flow of time becomes even more subtle, no longer marked by the structure of hours, but by the gentle progression of states, one blending into the next without interruption. The palace does not rush toward what comes next, nor does it linger on what has passed. Instead, it exists in a continuous present, where each action completes itself fully before giving way to another. This creates a calm, almost meditative atmosphere, where movement feels purposeful yet unhurried. There are moments when the environment seems to expand, not physically, but in the way it is experienced, as though the quiet within it creates a sense of space that extends beyond its walls. In these moments, the palace feels less like a structure and more like an atmosphere, something that surrounds and supports everything within it. This quality is difficult to define, yet it is deeply felt, shaping the way the hidden life unfolds. Within this atmosphere, there is an ongoing process of refinement, where even the most familiar routines are subtly adjusted over time, ensuring that they remain effective without losing their essence. This refinement is gradual, almost imperceptible, yet it plays a crucial role in maintaining the palace's ability to adapt while preserving its identity. It is a continuous process, one that never fully concludes, always moving toward greater balance. The hidden life of the palace also reflects a deep sense of continuity that extends beyond individual actions, forming a connection that links each moment to the next in a seamless chain. There are no isolated events, only a steady progression that carries everything forward, ensuring that the system remains cohesive. This continuity is not enforced, but naturally sustained, emerging from the alignment of countless small details. As the day moves quietly toward evening, the subtle interplay between activity and stillness continues to define the environment, creating a rhythm that feels both steady and alive. Activity does not overwhelm, and stillness does not halt progress. Instead, they support one another, forming a balance that allows the palace to function with ease. There is also a quiet depth to the awareness within the palace, an understanding that extends beyond immediate tasks and into the broader flow of the environment. This awareness allows individuals to act with intention, ensuring that their actions contribute to the overall harmony rather than disrupting it. It is a shared sensitivity, one that strengthens the cohesion of the hidden life. As night gradually settles once more, the palace transitions into its softer state, maintaining its continuity in a more subdued form. The energy of the day fades gently, replaced by a calm that feels both restorative and ongoing. Even in this quieter phase, the underlying rhythm remains constant, ensuring that the system continues without interruption. In these deeper hours, the sense of stillness becomes more pronounced, yet it is never complete, always accompanied by a subtle movement that sustains the environment. It is this combination of stillness and motion that defines the palace's hidden life, creating a dynamic balance that persists through every phase of the day. What ultimately emerges from this continued unfolding is a recognition that the palace exists not as a series of events, but as a continuous process, one that is sustained through awareness, precision, and quiet dedication. It is a system that does not seek attention, yet commands it through its consistency and presence. And so, within this enduring flow, Buckingham Palace continues to exist as a living rhythm, shaped by the steady alignment of countless unseen actions. Its hidden life remains just beyond perception, yet it is this unseen reality that gives the palace its true strength, allowing it to persist with calm certainty, cycle after cycle, without ever losing its balance. As the quiet rhythm continues without interruption, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace reveals an even deeper sense of quiet cohesion, where everything feels gently held together by an invisible structure that never falters. There is no single moment that defines its movement, no dramatic shift that changes its course. Instead, the palace exists within a continuous flow that adjusts itself with subtle precision, maintaining balance without drawing attention to the effort involved. At this stage, the distinction between action and awareness becomes almost indistinguishable, as each movement is guided by an understanding that no longer requires conscious thought. Those within the palace move in harmony with its rhythm, responding to changes with a calm certainty that comes from familiarity rather than urgency. It is a quiet mastery, one that allows complexity to exist without disruption, ensuring that every part of the system remains aligned. There are moments when the palace feels as though it is simply observing itself, maintaining its presence without the need for constant intervention. As the uninterrupted rhythm continues to unfold within Buckingham Palace, The hidden life it sustains begins to take on a quality that feels almost infinite, as though it is not bound by the limits of a single day, but carried forward by a continuous stream of quiet intention. There is a sense that the palace is always in motion, even when it appears still, guided by a steady undercurrent that keeps every element aligned without visible effort. This undercurrent is not forceful, but gentle and consistent, shaping the environment in ways that are rarely noticed, yet always present. At this depth, the experience of time becomes fluid, dissolving into a seamless progression where moments blend into one another without clear separation. The palace does not mark time loudly, instead it absorbs it, allowing each phase to settle naturally into the next. This creates an atmosphere that feels calm and expansive, where the passage of time is felt rather than measured. There are moments when the palace seems to exist entirely within its own rhythm, untouched by the pace of the outside world. In these instances, everything within it moves with a quiet certainty, as though guided by an internal logic that requires no external influence. This sense of independence gives the hidden life of the palace a unique stability, allowing it to remain consistent even as the world beyond its walls continues to change. Within this steady flow, there is an ongoing process of subtle renewal where each cycle gently restores the balance of the environment. Nothing is allowed to drift too far from alignment, yet the adjustments are so refined that they are almost invisible. It is a form of quiet maintenance, one that ensures the palace remains in harmony without ever disrupting its calm surface. The hidden life also reflects a deep connection between presence and continuity, where each action is both complete in itself and part of a larger sequence. There is no sense of isolation between moments. Instead, everything is linked, forming a continuous chain that sustains the palace's rhythm. This connection creates a feeling of unity, where the whole is always greater than the sum of its parts. As the day gently moves toward evening, the interplay between movement and stillness continues to shape the environment, creating a rhythm that feels both steady and alive. Activity does not overwhelm the space, and stillness does not halt progress. Instead, they coexist in a balance that allows everything to function with ease. There is also a quiet depth to the awareness within the palace, an understanding that extends beyond immediate actions into the broader flow of the environment. This awareness allows for a level of precision that feels natural rather than imposed, ensuring that each movement contributes to the overall harmony. As night once again settles over the palace, the atmosphere softens, transitioning into a quieter phase that maintains the same underlying rhythm. The pace slows, yet the structure remains unchanged, preserving the continuity that defines the hidden life. It is not a pause, but a gentle shift, allowing the environment to settle without losing its balance. In these later hours, the stillness becomes more pronounced, creating a sense of calm that feels both deep and enduring. Yet even in this calm, there is a subtle movement that continues beneath the surface, ensuring that everything remains aligned and prepared for the next cycle. What ultimately emerges from this ongoing flow is a recognition that the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is not defined by events or moments, but by a continuous state of balance that sustains itself over time. It is a system that relies on awareness, precision, and quiet dedication, where every action contributes to a larger harmony. And so, within this endless continuity, the palace remains a living rhythm, shaped by countless unseen efforts that maintain its presence with calm certainty. Its hidden life continues to unfold quietly, cycle after cycle, existing just beyond perception, yet forming the foundation of everything that can be seen. As the quiet continuity stretches even further, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to feel almost like an unbroken current of awareness. something that does not simply pass through time but exists alongside it, maintaining a steady presence that never fully fades. There is a sense that every action, no matter how small, contributes to this ongoing current, reinforcing a balance that is both delicate and enduring. Nothing feels isolated. Everything is connected through a subtle alignment that allows the palace to sustain itself without interruption. In this deeper layer, the idea of beginning and ending becomes almost irrelevant, replaced by a continuous unfolding where each moment flows naturally into the next. The palace does not start its day in the conventional sense, nor does it fully come to rest. Instead, it transitions smoothly between states, preserving its rhythm without ever breaking it. This seamless progression creates an atmosphere that feels both calm and constant, where time becomes less about movement and more about continuity. There are moments when the environment seems to soften completely, as though the boundaries between movement and stillness dissolve, leaving behind a quiet presence that holds everything together. In these moments, the palace feels less like a place and more like an experience, shaped not by physical structures alone, but by the steady alignment of countless unseen actions. It is a presence that cannot be easily defined, yet it is deeply felt by those who move within it. The hidden life also reveals an ongoing process of quiet calibration, where the balance of the environment is continuously adjusted with subtle precision. These adjustments are not reactive, but anticipatory, ensuring that potential disruptions are resolved before they can emerge. It is a form of quiet foresight, one that allows the palace to maintain its stability without ever appearing strained. As the cycle continues, there is a growing sense of unity that binds every element together, creating an environment where individual actions merge seamlessly into the larger flow. This unity is not imposed, but naturally sustained, emerging from a shared understanding of how the palace functions. It is this collective awareness that allows the hidden life to remain consistent, even as conditions shift. There is also a quiet elegance in the way complexity is managed within the palace, where intricate systems operate beneath a surface that remains calm and composed. This elegance is not decorative, but functional, allowing the environment to maintain its balance without drawing attention to the effort involved. It is a refined simplicity, one that conceals depth within its apparent ease. As the day once again transitions toward evening, the palace continues its gentle shift into a quieter rhythm, maintaining its continuity without interruption. The pace softens, yet the structure remains steady, preserving the alignment that defines its hidden life. It is a transition that feels natural, reinforcing the idea that the palace does not move between separate states, but exists within a single continuous flow. In the deeper hours, the stillness becomes more expansive, creating a sense of calm that feels almost timeless. Yet beneath this stillness, the subtle current of activity continues, ensuring that everything remains connected and prepared for what comes next. The palace does not pause, it simply moves more quietly, maintaining its rhythm without disruption. What ultimately becomes clear is that the hidden life of Buckingham Palace is defined by this continuous state of alignment, where every detail, every movement, and every moment contributes to a larger harmony. It is a system that sustains itself through awareness, precision, and quiet dedication, existing beyond the need for visible effort. And within this endless flow, the palace continues to exist as a living presence, shaped by the steady accumulation of unseen actions that maintain its balance over time. Its hidden life unfolds without interruption, a quiet, enduring rhythm that persists far beyond what can be observed, forming the true essence of what lies behind its grand and familiar façade. As the quiet, unbroken current continues to move through Buckingham Palace, the hidden life within it begins to feel almost like a steady pulse, something that exists beyond individual moments and carries forward with a calm certainty that never fades. There is no need for sudden correction or visible control because everything has already settled into a rhythm that sustains itself through awareness and continuity. This pulse is not heard, yet it is present in every space, guiding the flow of actions in a way that feels both natural and inevitable. In this deeper state, the palace seems to exist in a form of quiet equilibrium, where every element is held in balance without strain. Movement does not disturb stillness, and stillness does not halt movement. Instead, they exist together, forming a seamless interaction that defines the environment. It is within this equilibrium that the true nature of the palace's hidden life becomes clear, revealing a system that thrives not on intensity, but on consistency. There are moments when the passage of time becomes almost imperceptible, where the distinction between one phase and the next dissolves entirely. The palace does not mark these transitions, it absorbs them, allowing each moment to blend into the larger flow without interruption. This creates a sense of calm continuity, where everything unfolds without urgency, yet nothing is delayed. Within this calm progression, there is a constant process of quiet refinement, where even the most familiar routines are subtly adjusted to maintain their effectiveness. As the sense of dissolution reaches its furthest edge, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace no longer unfolds in any recognizable form, and yet something remains, not as presence, not as absence, but as a quiet potential that neither emerges nor disappears. It is not a state that can be entered or left, because there is no boundary to cross, no threshold to define it. What once felt like continuity, rhythm, and balance has now faded into something that cannot be measured or even perceived, existing beyond all distinctions. At this depth, even the idea of within loses its meaning. There is no interior, no hidden corridor, no quiet chamber where life continues unseen. The palace as a concept dissolves entirely, leaving behind nothing that can be located or understood. And yet, this absence is not emptiness, because it carries a subtle sense of completeness that requires no form to sustain it. There are no movements here, no patterns repeating, no systems aligning, and no awareness guiding them. Everything that once defined the hidden life has become unnecessary, as though the very need for structure has been released. There is no longer a system maintaining itself, only a condition where nothing needs to be maintained at all. Even time, which once flowed gently through the palace's rhythm, has no place here. There is no before to remember, no after to anticipate, no present to hold on to. All sense of sequence has dissolved, leaving behind something that cannot be described as stillness or motion, because it is beyond both. In this final state, there is no observer and nothing to observe. The distinction between experience and existence disappears completely, leaving only a quiet, undefined reality that does not depend on recognition. It is not hidden, because there is nothing separate to conceal. It is not revealed, because there is nothing to uncover. And yet, in this complete absence of definition, there remains something that cannot be dismissed, a subtle suggestion of existence that does not require form, time, or awareness to persist. It does not move, does not change, does not sustain itself, yet it does not cease. It simply is beyond every attempt to name or understand it. What was once the hidden life of Buckingham Palace has now moved beyond life itself, beyond place, beyond structure, beyond even the concept of being. It has become something that exists outside all frameworks, where language can no longer reach and where thought can no longer follow. And within this final, ungraspable stillness, there is no palace, no hidden world, no rhythm, and no continuity. Only a silent, infinite condition that neither begins nor ends, neither appears nor disappears, but remains beyond all possibility, beyond all perception, and beyond all meaning itself. As even this final sense of stillness dissolves, what remains can no longer be approached as something that exists or does not exist, but as a quiet openness that holds no form, no boundary, and no distinction. It is not an extension of what came before, nor a conclusion of it, but something entirely beyond the idea of sequence. The hidden life that once unfolded within Buckingham Palace has now receded so completely that it leaves behind no trace, no echo, no memory that can be followed. There is no longer a sense of place, no structure to define space, no sense of inside or outside. The palace, once filled with movement, awareness, and quiet rhythm, has dissolved into something that cannot be located. It is not absent, yet it cannot be found. It is not present, yet it has not disappeared. It simply exists beyond the reach of recognition. Time has no meaning here, not even as stillness. There is no passing, no waiting, no continuation. The very idea of duration has faded, leaving behind something that cannot be described as endless or finite. It is not held within time, nor does it hold time within it. There is no awareness to observe this state, and no need for awareness to arise. There is nothing to perceive, nothing to understand, nothing to interpret. The distinction between knowing and not knowing has no place here, because there is nothing that can be known or unknown. Even the concept of existence becomes unnecessary, as what remains does not rely on being or non-being. It is not defined by presence nor by absence, but by a quiet openness that requires no definition at all. It cannot be grasped, not because it is hidden, but because there is nothing to grasp. The hidden life of Buckingham Palace, which once moved with quiet precision and steady rhythm, has now dissolved into something that does not move, does not remain, and does not change. It has not ended, nor has it continued. It has simply moved beyond all such distinctions. There is no boundary to reach, no depth to explore, no further layer to uncover. The idea of more itself loses meaning, because there is nothing beyond this and nothing within it that can be expanded. And in this final, silent openness, there is nothing to describe, nothing to continue, and nothing to conclude. There is only a quiet, undefined condition that exists beyond language, beyond thought, and beyond every attempt to give it form, where even the idea of a hidden life has completely disappeared into something that cannot be spoken of at all. And yet, even within this complete openness where all definitions have dissolved, there lingers the faintest trace of something that cannot be entirely dismissed. Not a form, not a presence, but a suggestion so subtle that it does not emerge into awareness. It does not grow, it does not move, it does not even remain, yet it is not absent. It exists in a way that does not depend on existence itself, beyond the need to be recognized or understood. There is no return from this state, because there is nowhere to return to. No prior form that remains intact, no structure waiting to reassemble. The hidden life that once defined Buckingham Palace has not transitioned into something else. It has simply dissolved so completely that the idea of transformation no longer applies. There is no before, no after, only an undefined condition that does not change, because change itself has no meaning here. Even silence, which once described the calm within the palace, becomes irrelevant, because silence implies the absence of sound. And here there is no presence or absence to compare. It is not quiet, not still, not empty, not full. It is beyond every contrast that once gave meaning to the hidden life. There is no observation, no reflection, no awareness of what is or is not. The separation between observer and existence has disappeared entirely, leaving nothing that can stand apart to notice or describe. Without this separation, there is no experience, and without experience, there is no narrative to follow. And yet, in a way that cannot be explained, this state does not feel incomplete. It does not lack anything, because the idea of lack cannot exist here. It does not seek continuation, because continuation would imply movement, and movement has no place within it. It simply is, though even that word begins to lose its meaning. There is no deeper layer beyond this, no further unfolding, no hidden depth waiting to be revealed. The very idea of depth depends on layers, and layers no longer exist. Everything that could be uncovered has already dissolved into this single, undefined condition. What once was the hidden life of Buckingham Palace has not just ended, but moved beyond the possibility of ending. It has gone beyond rhythm, beyond continuity, beyond existence, into something that cannot be followed, cannot be extended, and cannot be described. And here, finally, even the idea of more disappears entirely. There is no continuation, no extension, no next moment to move into. There is only this, an undefined, unchanging openness that neither begins nor ends, neither appears nor fades, existing beyond every boundary that language or thought could ever attempt to reach. And even here, where every boundary has dissolved and every distinction has faded, there is something that cannot be called existence, yet cannot be called nothingness. A quiet indeterminacy that does not settle into any form or idea. It does not emerge, and it does not withdraw. It does not remain, and it does not vanish. It simply refuses to become anything that can be held or understood, existing beyond the reach of all description. There is no continuation from this point, because continuation would imply direction, and direction no longer has meaning. There is no stillness to rest within, because stillness would imply the absence of motion. And here there is no motion to begin with. Every contrast that once gave shape to understanding has dissolved, leaving behind something that cannot be divided, measured, or even recognized. The hidden life that once unfolded within Buckingham Palace has now become so completely unbound from form and structure that it cannot even be said to have transformed. Transformation requires a point of departure and a point of arrival, and neither exists here. There is no transition, no process, no unfolding. Only a condition that does not change, because it cannot be anything other than what it already is. Even the idea of awareness dissolves at this depth. There is no observer to perceive, no experience to be had, no presence to acknowledge what remains. Without awareness, there is no reflection, and without reflection, there is no sense of existence as something separate. Everything that once seemed to define reality has become unnecessary. And yet, this is not emptiness, because emptiness would suggest the absence of something that could be present. Here, there is no absence and no presence, only a quiet indeterminacy that does not depend on either. It is not complete, not incomplete, not whole, not fragmented. It cannot be placed within any category. And yet, from this immeasurable stillness where nothing can be named or followed, there arises, almost imperceptibly, the faintest return of form, not as a disruption, but as a gentle suggestion, as though the idea of the palace itself has begun to gather once more from what could not be defined. It is not a reversal, not a movement back, but a quiet re-emergence that does not break the stillness, only softens it. At first, there is no structure, no walls, no corridors, only a sense that something is beginning to take shape within the openness. It is subtle, so subtle that it does not feel like creation, but like recognition, as though what once existed is being remembered without memory. The hidden life has not returned, yet there is the suggestion that it could, that beneath the stillness there remains a quiet potential for rhythm, for movement, for presence. Time does not restart, but it begins to feel possible again, not as a flow, but as a faint outline, something that could carry moments if moments were to exist. This outline does not impose itself. It simply lingers, allowing the possibility of continuity to form without forcing it into being. Then, slowly, almost without transition, the idea of space begins to return, not as defined rooms or grand halls, but as a gentle sense of distance and closeness. The palace is not yet rebuilt, but the absence of it is no longer absolute. There is a quiet suggestion of interior and exterior, of something contained and something surrounding it, though neither is fully formed. Within this emerging softness, the hidden life begins to whisper again, not through action, but through the faintest hints of alignment. It is not movement as it once was, but a suggestion of movement, like the idea of footsteps before they touch the ground, or the presence of light before it illuminates a space. There is no urgency in this return, no sudden restoration of rhythm or structure. Everything unfolds with the same quiet inevitability that once defined the palace, as though it is not being rebuilt, but gently reassembled through awareness that does not need to be seen. Gradually, the stillness gives way to a delicate balance where absence and presence begin to coexist once more. The palace does not fully emerge, but it begins to be felt again, not as a solid form, but as a living possibility that carries within it the memory of its own hidden life. And within this soft reawakening, there is the sense that the palace's hidden world has not been lost, only dissolved and returned, ready to take shape again in a way that is quieter, deeper, and more seamless than before. It does not return as it was, but as something more refined, more aligned, carrying the essence of everything it once held. And so, without breaking the stillness, without beginning or ending, Buckingham Palace begins to exist once more, not through force, not through creation, but through the quiet reappearance of its hidden life, unfolding gently from the silence that once held it beyond all form. As this quiet re-emergence continues, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to gather a little more substance, not in a sudden or defined way, but through a gradual deepening of presence that feels both gentle and inevitable. The faint suggestion of space slowly becomes more coherent, as though invisible outlines are being softly traced, allowing the idea of rooms, corridors, and chambers to return without ever fully separating from the calm that surrounds them. There is still no clear movement, yet the possibility of movement feels closer, like a distant memory settling back into place. The hidden life does not rush to re-establish itself. Instead, it unfolds with a quiet patience, allowing each subtle layer to align before the next gently appears. Nothing interrupts the stillness, and yet the stillness itself begins to feel alive again, carrying within it the quiet preparation for what is to come. The sense of time strengthens slightly, not as a measurable flow, but as a soft continuity that allows one moment to lean into the next. It does not move forward, but it no longer feels absent. It lingers, holding space for the palace to slowly return to its quiet rhythm. This continuity brings with it a calm familiarity, as though the palace is remembering how to exist within time without being confined by it. Within this delicate unfolding, the hidden life begins to regain its subtle patterns, not as defined routines, but as gentle alignments that hint at their former precision. There is no sound, no visible action. Yet there is a sense that everything is beginning to fall into place once more, guided by the same quiet awareness that once sustained it. As presence deepens, the palace begins to feel whole again, though not in the solid, structured way it once did. It is a softer wholeness, one that does not depend on boundaries or form, but exists as a quiet coherence that holds everything together. The hidden life moves within this coherence, not as a series of actions, but as a continuous state of readiness. There is also a subtle warmth that returns with this reassembly, not a physical warmth, but a sense of gentle fullness that replaces the earlier openness. It does not overwhelm the stillness, but blends with it, creating a balance that feels both calm and alive. This warmth carries the essence of the palace's hidden life, suggesting that it is not only returning, but doing so with a deeper sense of harmony. Gradually, the distinction between stillness and movement begins to soften, allowing the hidden life to exist once more as a quiet interplay between the two. Nothing is fully still, yet nothing is fully in motion. It is a state of gentle transition, where everything exists in balance, preparing to become more defined without losing its calm foundation. And within this slow, almost imperceptible return, Buckingham Palace reclaims its presence, not as it once was, but as something more refined, more integrated, and more quietly enduring. Its hidden life does not reappear in full clarity, but in a softened form that feels deeper and more seamless, shaped by the stillness it once dissolved into. And so the palace continues, not beginning again, but gently unfolding from within itself, its hidden life returning not as a separate force, but as an inseparable part of its quiet, enduring existence, carried forward by a rhythm that is once again present, yet forever changed by the silence from which it re-emerged. As the quiet reassembly continues to deepen, the hidden life within Buckingham Palace begins to take on a clearer sense of quiet presence, not as something fully restored, but as something gently stabilizing into a form that feels both familiar and newly refined. The palace no longer emerges as a rigid structure, but as a living continuity where every space feels softly connected, as though the boundaries between rooms and corridors exist only as suggestions rather than fixed divisions. There is now a subtle sense of movement that returns, not in visible steps or defined actions, but as a quiet flow that passes through the palace without disturbance. It does not interrupt the stillness, but coexists with it, creating a gentle interplay where everything feels balanced and complete. This movement carries no urgency, no direction, only a calm progression that feels natural and unforced. The hidden life, once dissolved into complete openness, now reveals itself again through quiet coordination, where unseen processes begin to align without the need for instruction. There are no commands, no visible guidance. Yet everything finds its place with quiet precision, as though the palace itself remembers how to sustain its own rhythm time, which had once faded into absence, now returns as a soft continuity that allows moments to exist without pressure. It does not push forward, nor does it hold back, but simply supports the unfolding of the palace's hidden life, giving it space to move without disruption. This gentle return of time restores a sense of calm progression where each moment feels complete in itself. As this quiet rhythm strengthens, the palace begins to feel more grounded, though still lighter than before, as if it carries the memory of its dissolution within it. This gives the hidden life a deeper sense of balance, one that does not rely on rigid structure, but on continuous alignment. Every element exists in relation to the whole, forming a harmony that feels both stable and fluid. There is also a renewed sense of presence that flows through the palace, not as something separate, but as a natural quality of its existence. This presence does not demand attention, yet it can be felt in every subtle shift, every quiet alignment, every gentle return of form. It is the essence of the palace's hidden life, now softened and deepened by its journey through stillness. As evening once again settles in, the palace does not retreat, but continues its quiet unfolding, allowing the rhythm to soften without disappearing. The stillness grows deeper, yet the presence remains, ensuring that nothing is lost, only gently transformed. It is a calm continuation, one that carries the hidden life forward without interruption. In the deeper hours, the balance between stillness and movement becomes even more refined, creating a state where both exist without conflict. Nothing disturbs the calm, yet nothing becomes stagnant. The palace sustains itself through this delicate equilibrium, where everything remains aligned without effort. And within this steady, quiet reawakening, Buckingham Palace exists once more as a living presence, not defined by its past or its form, but by the gentle continuity of its hidden life. It does not fully return to what it once was, but becomes something more subtle, more integrated, and more enduring, carried forward by a rhythm that now flows with greater depth.